Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Parkour. It's time for an update on my disk array on my home lab. So what I ended up doing was kind of a little bit of everything. So I ended up buying five 4 terabyte drives because that they're at the right price point now. So instead of just replacing a roughly 4 terabyte array with a 4 terabyte array, I now have a 11, 12, nominally 12, but 11 terabytes of usable space array. And you might be saying, well, RAID 5 with 5 disks, that should end up being, 4 disks of usable space. Essentially, that means 16 terabytes. Yes, that is how the math works. But as we'll get to it in just a minute, um, there were some complicating factors. So anyway, the discs arrived a couple days ago, uh, and I've got them in the machine. I took out the old discs, obviously, and here's one of the old discs. Um, I will say the new ones, even though this is a 1 terabyte drive, 1.5 terabyte drive, um, and the new ones are 4 terabytes. The new ones are considerably skinnier, about two-thirds the width of this drive, which I've been out of the game for a while. I have seen drives that skinny, but I expected the 4 terabyte drive to be just as big as the 1.5 terabyte drive. Um, anyway, when I pulled the drives out, I did label them. The B refers to it showed up as SDB, which doesn't mean a whole lot, because if you take a drive out and reboot the machine, the drive names, the drive letters, can get changed around. Um, but I do have a record of where the drives sat in the drive bay as well, just in case that's relevant. Which actually brings me to the next point, which let me switch over to my iPhone real quick. And so let's look at the machine. You'll notice that only 4 drives are lighting up. And in fact, this one is actually, if I can pull it out, it's not even in there. It's dislodged a little bit. And the reason for that is when I stuck it in and turned on the machine, it started spewing errors. I don't think the disk is the issue. It is brand new. There is always a possibility that new disks can have issues, but I don't think the disk is the issue. I think either the bay, the enclosure that I'm using, has some issue, or maybe the SATA cable connected to the bay is having an issue. It could, of course, be the controller. I haven't pulled apart the machine to see where that's plugged in. Um, I think all of these drives are plugged directly into the motherboard. I think I specifically got this motherboard because it had 6 SATA ports, um, and it could be that port is dying. Who knows? But anyway, I've got 4 disks and essentially a cold spare, which is not a bad place to be, um, honestly. So let me switch back real quick. Yeah, so I've got 5 disks, 4 disks in a RAID 5, uh, which gives me 12 terabytes officially, but 11 terabytes of a file system. And I've backed up all my files to it, or restored the backup of the files to it, roughly 2 terabytes. So it looks kind of goofy. I've got an 11 terabyte uh, file system with 2 terabytes of data. So now I have to go generate 9 terabytes of data, um, which I don't know if I'll generate that much, but I do plan on doing some cool things with that machine now that I've got it back up. Got a few Linux versions that I want to play around with. Um, Started playing around with Kubernetes. Um, I have kind of committed myself to actually figuring out how Kubernetes is supposed to work. I've mentioned a couple times on the channel and in talks that I've done, um, Kubernetes just never made sense to me. I don't know why. It makes sense to me in theory. Like I understand the role that Kubernetes plays in modern infrastructure and deployments. I want to understand Kubernetes. It just never quite made sense to me. Um, but something's different now. I've been reading up on it. I've been playing around with it. I set up a cluster in DigitalOcean, and I've been playing around with that. Don't have anything actually deployed there yet, but we'll see where that goes because it's actually starting to, I don't know, bits and pieces are making sense to me now. So, actually, as soon as I finish recording this video, that's what's next on my list. Is I've got a few things to do with that Kubernetes cluster to see if I can actually get an application deployed there. So that's kind of a lot for this video, but the raid is running well. Um, oh, I should mention, at the start of the video, I said I decided to do kind of a little bit of everything. So I mentioned Ceph, um, which I'm pretty sure is how that's pronounced, the distributed file system. I do plan on doing that. The reason I went with the RAID is because it's something I knew. It's something uh, that I knew I could get up and running, relatively quickly. I knew what parts I needed. I knew exactly the commands I needed to run in order to get back up and running. Um, and that machine, unfortunately, the way that RAID is integrated into the machine, it's kind of necessary for the machine to boot. In hindsight, maybe not the best way to set things up. Um, but I wanted that machine running. It'll just make some of the future things I want to do with my home lab and my home network um, easier. So I picked up two machines from a friend that are actually, I mean, they're probably newer than the machine that's sitting behind me, and probably about equally powerful. Um, Significantly less disk space in them, of course. Um, but I've got a couple machines that I'll probably start getting set up here in the near future, and that'll start forming the backbone of the Ceph cluster. I might start doing some Kubernetes things there, or I might start playing around with some of the other software that I've built, some of the other things that are on my list of things to play around with and learn. Um, but it's all I see is opportunities at this point. So, uh, you know, it was definitely unfortunate that my old disk array died. I was not expecting it. It's not something that you hope for, but it did force me to start thinking about some of the things that I have wanted to learn for a while, and kind of rethink how I could do some things around here. So hopefully that's interesting. If it is, all the usual YouTube things. Subscribe to the channel, click that like button. If you have ideas of things you want me to check out, or something I said uh, is something that you'd like to see in a future video, let me know. Leave a comment, and maybe that'll bump it up the list, and that'll be something that I'll do sooner rather than later. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.